How would you describe how the sea sounds? Whatever it sounds like, I'd say it's probably pretty quiet. Because these are QuietSeas. They're called the QuietSeas. Headphone highlights. Hello, I'm Master Marslander, and today we have the Rose Technics QuietSeas. They're an affordable dynamic driver IEM provided to us by Rose Technics. So Rose Technics, thank you very much for providing these out for review. But as always, all thoughts and opinions about these are going to be my own. And now let's get started with the build. Here they are, the QuietSeas. QuietSeas are a 10mm dynamic driver headphone, and the build quality here is actually quite nice. They are machined very, very well. See if you can get a good look at that there. The shell here is lovely. It looks great. It might be, some people think it might look a little kind of old-fashioned, but I think it looks very, very pleasant. It's a very small shell, a small body compared to some other IEMs that I have seen, and I can really appreciate that because it means it's very light and comfortable in the ear. We'll talk about that when we get to comfort. So what we have here is a multi-material shell that is really highly precision CNC machined. On the front here, we do have QuietSea printed right there on the front, as well as a port. And on the back, another small, tiny little port here, but nothing else. At first look, it looks like there's maybe no marking on here for whether or not this is a left or right shell, but there actually is. It's just extremely subtle. I don't even know if the camera can pick this up, but right next to where the cable connects right there, if I get it in the right light, you can see an L. So we got the L right there for left, and then it'll be R for right on the right channel shell. So very, very subtle branding, very, very subtle marking, which is nice, though I do wish that it was a little bit easier to tell if this was the left or the right unit. If I remove the tips here, we can see the nozzle, and as you can see, the nozzle is actually an oval shape as opposed to just a perfectly round shape, which is what we're more used to. So that's kind of unique. It doesn't really matter very much. You're still able to use, as you can see here, the tips are still just kind of a basic round tip. Well, maybe they are a little bit oval shaped, but I think you could fit just normal stock tips to this without too much fuss, so it's not that big of a deal, but it is an oval nozzle, and some people do have some trouble getting oval nozzles to fit them correctly or to be very compatible with the various kind of tips that they have. For me, it's been nothing but fine, so no big deal there. The cable here that the QuietSeas come with is an absolutely superb cable. Look at this thing. It's fabulous. It's fantastic. Look at that. It is kind of just a gray nylon braid here, but underneath that braid is copper wire. It's very, very nice. It drapes very, very well. It doesn't really tangle very much. It's actually genuinely an extremely high quality cable. I really, really like it. Here on the splitter end, we have these very nice metal splitter and a nice little metal adjuster, which isn't the easiest to use, but it's there if you want to. And we do have some small branding there for Rose Technics and their logo. But yes, very, very nice. And then this weave splits into a dual weave that goes into your IEMs right here. And the connector is a MMCX connector, which is, you know, some people prefer the 2-pin, but, you know, whatever. MMCX is fine, certainly serves its purpose. And the cables themselves are also labeled left and right, as you can see right there. If I get it in the right light, you have a little tiny L right there that indicates left or right channel on the cable. So that helps you identify at a glance which side should go where if you're not really paying attention. And as you can see, mine is a 3.5mm, but this is also available in 4.4 Pentagon. When you order your QuietSeas, you kind of get the choice of which one you want. I do wish that it came with both. That would be a nice added value to it, but otherwise it's fine. At least you get the option of choosing 3.5mm or 4.4 Pentagon. And I also really like this kind of subtle muted aesthetic of it. So many IEM cables are very kind of shiny, bombastic, like gold and silver or some mixture of the two. whereas this is just subtle, it's just gray. And maybe that might be a little boring to some people, but I think it's kind of nice and a departure from what most IEMs come with. So I think it helps it stand out. And if you want to see something really aesthetically pleasing, check this out. We take our gray cabled QuietSeas and we connect them to our titanium colored hip DAC 3s, and look at that. I think that looks quite pretty. I think that's a very nice aesthetic right there. Just for the hell of it. Not really trying to say anything. Just looks nice. What else you get with the QuietSeas? You get this nice little carrying case, just a canvas case. It's nice, it's small, it's simple. It says Rose Technics right there on the front. Has a simple zipper with a little tie on it. Open that up and it's got a little bit of kind of soft fabric on the inside. You got a little package here to have your tips, as well as this little pulley tool. Not entirely sure exactly what the pulley tool is for. I haven't had a need to use it for anything, but hey, you got a pulley tool if you need to do some pulley stuff, whatever. Now, the tips, I do wish, this is something that I do wish that Rose Technics would do a little bit of a better job about. You don't get nearly enough options with your tips, because if you look, all we get are just the same plain, clear silicone tips. You get large, small, and medium sizes, and that's it. You get no other options in terms of tips. It would really add some extra value to these if they included some more tips, more options, different materials, something, because it's a little lackluster. But that's a bit nitpicky, especially at this price range. So, you know, take that as you will, but that is something I wish. That is something I would like to see, though. More tips. Great, so yes, they're built very, very well. How does the build affect their comfort? Well, like I said, they're actually, because they're such a small form factor and the nice use of materials here, they're very, very light and they fit in the ear very, very well. The shape of this fits my ear damn near perfectly, and it does provide a nice, good, solid sound isolation. Everything's muffled, everything's very, I can't hear my fan anymore, my voice is muffled, so very good sound isolation without too much pressure. Over long listening sessions, like well over an hour, things can start to get a little bit fatiguing, but otherwise very, very comfortable. I have listened to these for very long sessions. I've done some gaming with these, some streaming with these, and it's been great. It's been a very pleasant experience with, again, only reaching discomfort or fatigue after really long sessions. So the comfort's actually very, very nice. And talking about the shell here again, when you look at the product page for these on Rose Technics website and you start to read the marketing about the ergonomics of this shell, they really, the marketing really boasts a lot about the extensive research data they use to achieve this ergonomic design. But this shell is the same shell used in the Ico Opal OH2. So that's a little strange. I kind of don't care too much for the phrasing they use in the marketing for these, because it's not a wholly unique shell. It is used in some other IEMs. It's not that big of a deal because it's a great design. It's a great shell. Just, you know, let's try to be a bit more transparent, a bit more honest about it. Other than that, though, it's a great design. It's a great shell. It is very ergonomic, at least for my ears. Very light, very comfortable, very effective. So overall, still a very, very good design. So great. Build is great. Build is a good, solid pass. How do they sound? Well, to talk about how they sound, I'm going to do this in two parts. I'm going to talk about how they sound in general, but I'm also going to talk about how they compare with these. The SIMGOT EW200s, which we have already reviewed, and come in at a very similar price bracket. Shush. So this is kind of, I think, maybe one of their major competitors, and I think it's worthwhile to see how they actually compare. But first, again, let's talk about the QuietSeas themselves. How do they sound in general? So first and foremost, the tuning of the QuietSeas is actually pretty fantastic. It is a sound signature that most everyone's going to really enjoy, and they're a genuine delight to listen to. They're very mid-range focused, and that mid-range performance is really quite good. They're clean, they're clear, and they have very good vocal representation. Sometimes vocals can have this sort of artificial crispiness to them, so it's not maybe necessarily natural, but still very engaging and a joy to listen to. The low end is very respectful. It is deep, punchy, and hard hitting, but it doesn't ever really get very muddy or veiling, so it's actually very well controlled. There isn't a whole lot of sub-bass performance coming out of these. I feel like the sub-bass gets rolled off maybe a little bit too early, but kind of your bass range and mid-bass, very, very enjoyable, very impactful, very present, and again, in a very kind of natural bassy sort of way that doesn't sound very overdone. So there is good impact here, but it does just lack a bit of extension. The treble range is very pleasant, it's very relaxed. You don't get a whole lot of sparkle and texture in the treble range, but you do get a decent amount of detail up there. It's never fatiguing, it's never too much, too high. So there is a bit of a roll off there, but it is otherwise pretty quick and snappy. So good speed out of that treble range as well. Your soundstage has a nice kind of medium soundstage, medium width. So you get a little bit of space, a little bit of airiness without it being huge and gigantic sounding. So kind of a nice midpoint between immersion and intimacy. Imaging is solid, a good 360 degrees of it, though it does lack a little bit of definition, like dead center in front of you. Over here on either side of you, imaging's quite nice, so your stereo imaging is nice, but when it comes to it being directly in front of you, things get a little bit less defined, but otherwise it still sounds very nice and very immersive, and again, 360 degrees of it. And overall, for a $50 IEM, it's extremely impressive. But how do they compare to the SIMGOT EW200? Compared to the 200s, the QuietSeas are more relaxed, a lot more of an easier listening experience. They're warmer overall, and I would say offer a bit more bass presence, but do not have the extension and sub-bass performance of the EW200s. In fact, the difference of extension here is quite noticeable and a definite win for the 200s. The EW200s are definitely brighter and offer, I would say, much better treble performance. It's a much more detailed, crispy, and textured high end. When it comes to soundstage, QuietSeas do sound a bit wider, so you are getting a bit of a larger sound, while the EW200s are generally just a little bit more intimate. When it comes to imaging, I would say that the QuietSeas offer a more sort of spatial imaging, while the EW200s, I would say, offer much better forward imaging definition. Also, the EW200s are a little bit easier to drive. So the QuietSeas here are a blast. They're a joy to listen to. They're built very well and they come in a very nice package, although I do wish that they did have more options in terms of tips. The tuning is wonderful and a sound signature that, again, pretty much everyone can enjoy. And at $50 some, they're genuinely an excellent value. So a definite recommendation for me. I really like them. They're excellent. So to Rose Technics, thank you so much for providing the QuietSeas to us for this review. We really appreciate you. That's about it. I hope that you enjoyed this. I'll be seeing you again very soon.